So I have slides. Here they come. Do they forward themselves, or do I just blink and it happens? I don't know how the slides forward. There they go.
There's a man about to come and sort it out.
Yeah. Woohoo! All right. So I'll stand because I'm more comfortable standing. So what you're looking at here, this is a conference that I do every year in Cork. It's called I Wish. I love it. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. So this is how I have a super amount of fun. And it's me in a room with about 800 girls. I mean, they come through in about groups of about 200. And so in this particular picture, what you're looking at here is one of the groups of women. Technology work, if I blink at you. If I do this, if I dance. Okay, there's another slide. We did it, but the slides won't help. Okay, good. So I'm doing this, and as I'm saying this, I'm doing my standard intro. And there was a group of women in the back, and you can see like there's great support for this conference. And there was a particularly loud group of girls. They were like super excited, and they're encouraged, take out your phones, be loud, get into it. And so somebody said, where are you from? In Presentation College. And they're like, woo! And they're as excited as can be. And I'm on the stage, and I say, I may need that. And whenever I point at you, I need you guys to yell, we did it. Now, here's the actual real story. And so they did. They screamed it. But the story was, like, I didn't know what I was going to do with this. And there were a couple slides maybe where it worked, but I really didn't know where I was going to use it. Now, I later ended up using it, and I'll explain to you where I did. So when I get on the stage, I always ask a question. And in fact, I'll do it here. How many women in the audience have heard that IT, in any time growing up, that IT is for boys? By a show of hands. That's a shocking amount of hands. It's sort of not shocking to me because I see it all the time, every time I ask that question. And for me, the interesting thing is women girls are actually as good at tech as anybody is. They're as good at math as anybody is, unless they're told that they're not, and then they believe it. And crazy enough, on GitHub, you may have heard it, it's an open source repository of code. If they basically look at the code and they say, can you rank the quality of that code? Women's code consistently ranks higher, except if their gender is known, then it ranks lower. And so when I ask for this show of hands, I'm surprised and I'm saddened, but I'm also feeling called to change it. And so women find out that they hear this message that IT is not for them directly. They might be told by their teachers. They might be told by their parents. They might be told by friends. My own girls have been told that girls aren't made for games. Girls don't even play games, to which they answer the mic dropping, my mommy makes them, so good on them. But sometimes girls go to school and they learn it indirectly when they're the only girl in their classroom or the only woman, as I have often been in a company. And recently I decided, this is C, and I decided to brush up on my C programming language. It's something that I really want to get into again. And here's the very first image of the course. Now, I don't even know who this is, right? But if you want to drive young women away, it's like I'm a guy, I'm old, and I'm white. I can just imagine a young woman going, all right, whatever it is, I don't want to learn C. I don't want to look like that when I get older. And what if it looked like this instead? Like this right here is a she's a rock star. She's a space star, really. So this is Margaret Hamilton. Margaret Hamilton wrote the code that literally put men on the moon. And her daughter, yeah, she deserves a round of applause. She's not a rock star. And so imagine if a young woman saw this image instead. That's the code she wrote. And her daughter found a bug in the code. And they said, no, we're not going to fix that because astronauts don't make mistakes. Well, guess what? Guess what they did? They made a mistake, and she's the one who also safely got them back. Absolute rock star. This is her daughter. She was a mother. Mind you, she's raising families while putting men on the moon. Is there something more she could possibly do? So there she is, and she's a real hero. And we often hear about Ada Lovelace. Women invented programming. They invented programming in 1843. Grace Hopper invented COBOL. Louis Mitchell invented Fortran. Francis Allen invented the optimizing compiler. Kathleen Booth invented assembly language and the first assembler, and there's no more hardcore code than that. And Sister Mary Kenneth Keller, yes, you heard that right, she was one of the foundational people in BASIC, which if you're a programmer, you may have started in BASIC. I did, and it's still near and dear to my heart. And she did this at Dartmouth, which was then a male-only college, except apparently if you were a nun. And then my personal favorite, this is Kay Mcnulty, Irish-speaking. She's from County Donegal. She was one of 5 women on the all-female coding team of the first ever computer, the ENIAC. Now, we don't know about them because at the time, there was much more of an influence placed on the people who created the hardware versus the people who created the software. But she's also an absolute legend. And this is them. This is the all-female coding team working, and they're actually coding there. And so these women that I'm naming, they're not unicorns, right? Like the reality is at the very beginning of computing, we were the computers. We've always been here. Quite literally, women were called computers. That's what they're doing. That is their job. They are computers. And here's some other examples. In fact, women, when we first started to hire programmers, they targeted women because it was menial, detail-oriented labor, and it didn't require a lot of brains. Right? And so they thought women would be perfect for this role, but then guess what? They realized that these jobs were becoming more and more important, and so they became more and more valuable. And society wasn't ready for a female-led technological revolution. And so one of the things I'm planning to pursue a PhD just to study this, just to be a fighter, just because I can't stand this. One of the things that I'm actually pursuing is there's examples of companies being taken over in Silicon Valley. And they replaced their all-female coding force with all men. And there's like multiple examples of that. So why am I going backwards now? We don't know, because I'm hitting the backwards button. This is why, yes. Okay, so up until 1970, there was IBM in the UK used to talk about code in terms of girl hours because they had so many female coders. Here's just some pictures that you can see of women from that point in time. And even in my own industry, an interesting thing, people think boys most often play games. Well, this is research from this year, and more women own consoles than men. And in fact, adult women, represent a larger portion of game players than boys under the age of 18. So if you're looking around the room, there's many hardcore gamers here. We may not be playing Fortnite. I mean, God, I have enough of that game in my house already. But we may not be playing Fortnite, but we're playing tons and tons of different games. And we belong here and we are here. So why am I telling you all this? Well, I'm telling you all this because sometimes people don't understand what a tremendous role that we had. So first and foremost, the first reason is that we did it, because we did do it. We invented code. The second reason is because it's not just enough to have, I don't want to replace that room here. I don't want all women in that room. It's important to have equality and important that we share chairs. My husband and I work together. I see the influence that a male and female brain can have in code. I see the influence that people of different cultures can have. Like that influence of diversity is incredibly important. And in Silicon Valley, we are over half the population, 59% of the workforce, but we're less than a third of tech workers. And only a fifth of those are actually in a position of leadership. And so if you're wondering why your seatbelt doesn't fit because you were born with breasts, now you know the answer why. If you're wondering why the original Xbox came with a controller that was roughly the size of a mini car, that is why, because women weren't consulted in these things. And so for me, I think about all those young girls who were told that IT is for boys, and we can change it, because the reality is we invented it. We were here. We were potentially the majority. These are things that I'm starting to cover, and I'm finding actual evidence and anecdotal evidence, and this is something I hope to work much more on. And I think if we want to innovate our future, we need to celebrate our past so that girls have a comeback. They're thinking like, no, of course IT is for girls. We invented it, idiot. And that's what I want people to think. Well, maybe not quite with those words, but I want them to feel excited about a career and feel like they owned it, they brought it, and other people were invited to our party. So girls are great at IT. I want them to think that they are natural coders because they are. And in my own life, I have been told that I will not go to the college that was my first choice. I was told that by a teacher. I was told I would never amount to anything as a writer. I was told that I shouldn't make the game that later ended up being part of the reason I won a BAFTA. I was told that I would live in the worst area of town. But yet, I am a fighter, and I have now written 3 books, and I am working on my 4th. I applied only to that college and early admission, and I got in, and I graduated. And I live in Galway, and I would not want to live anywhere else. So I'm always a fighter. Thank you. But at the same time, sometimes I'm not a fighter, right? Sometimes I just hear things and I believe what I hear and I think, yeah, maybe I can't do that, or maybe that is too risky, or maybe I shouldn't take that chance. And I wonder how many girls who could have put somebody on the moon, who could have created the next great game, who could have cured cancer, I don't know. I wonder how many of those girls were told they couldn't, they shouldn't, and that it's not a realm for them, and that's gotta stop, and we can absolutely do it. And so when I'm thinking about how we can handle technology and how we can do these things, like these girls can do it, and we need to be a part of that. We need to tell them these messages because we did it. Thank you.
Well done.
Well done.
She's doing all that, and she's also starting a PhD. So in case any of you are feeling a bit exhausted after getting out of bed this morning, here's a woman who has more energy, I think, than the entire city.